You should get a little signal when it says you're live streaming.
I see it.
Oh, okay. We are actually probably recording. So like this little bit will be on there if I recall from other times, but I like to let it give me like the confirmation page so that I don't accidentally cut it out too soon. Okay, okay. I think that's it. So, all right, Bernie.
Hey, Becca, what's going on?
I'm tired. You have me up past my bedtime.
My apologies. It's crazy over here in the Salazar household. So this is kind of the time that I get to pull away a bit and catch up with you. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that you're up past your bedtime because I put a call into you the other day and I was like, all right, it's a new year. Um, last year Bernie was definitely dealing with what everybody else was dealing with, which is
Mm-hmm.
a ton of different things. And I thought I was doing pretty good. But this year I was like, all right, there's quite a bit going on. And I found myself and I find myself actually using food as a bit of a crutch. And I think I shared that with you. And I thought it was
Mm-hmm.
really important to share that with our viewers, our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going on right now. For me, I'm sure for everybody else out there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I noticed myself the other day kind of just really mindlessly reaching for things around my kitchen. And
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm not saying this because I was like, oh, hard on myself or I feel horrible
Mm-hmm.
about it. It's just a behavior that I've noticed that I
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen in a while. And it peaked out and was like, oh, here I
Mm-hmm.
am. It's still there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Where'd you think it was gonna go?
well, it's funny, right? Because I think I mean, I always know that, there's parts of who I am that really found and I guess still find some comfort and solace in reaching for food or for snacks or for things like that. And um, I kind of paused and I
Yeah.
recognized it and I'm really proud of myself for doing that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's again, I just kind of much like some of the negative thoughts that I think have gone through my mind throughout the years
Mm-hmm.
and really learning and making body kindness part of who I am,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of let that realization sit for a bit
Mm-hmm.
instead of jumping to judgment, which is what I
Mm-hmm.
normally did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, yeah. And then after I realized what I was doing, I was like, I need to call Rebecca up and just let her know that this is something that I'm noticing, and I wanted to share it.
Yeah.
I was eager to share it. I think that you kind of got that in the call. I was like, all right, we
Yeah.
need to share this because um, I'm surely not the only person out there
Yeah.
that is maybe mid to further along in their body kindness journey
Uh-huh.
and is experiencing you know some of these feelings and going back to what works or what worked for them in the past due to all that's going on. I mean,
Yeah.
we're dealing with obviously, the big one is COVID, and you know whether or not we're keeping our families safe. We've had family members and friends that maybe have gotten it. A few of us have suffered loss. So as if that wasn't enough, if you're
Mm.
a parent, you may be dealing with children or a child that's out of school, and you find yourself taking on the role of an educator.
Mhm.
Um, some of you may, be working from home. That's presents its own challenge, whether you have children or not. Some of you are business owners like myself, and you're trying to navigate what your business looks like in this current climate,
Mhm.
given the restrictions that are in place. Um, and then, of course, with what's going on, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, with our government. And I think that that's kind of was one of the last things I was like, okay, this is pretty intense, and you're sitting back and you're watching, the extremely unfortunate um, and horrible events that were taking place, at our Capitol. And yeah, I think that was kind of like the final thing. I was like, all
Mhm.
right, I've just found myself reaching for any type of coping mechanism that would soothe
Mhm.
whatever uncertainty and uneasiness was going on and
Mhm.
has been going on. And I wanted to share that. I said that already, but again, I'm very proud of the progress that I've made. But I'm super, honest and direct in that this is an ongoing thing. And it was eye opening when I gave you a call to just kind of share this information.
Mhm. Well, so first of all, horrible events, right? Like, I don't know. A horrible event is like you accidentally bumped into something and knocked over a family heirloom and it broke and you can't replace it, right?
Sure.
Right. What happened last week was an attempted coup on our government. There was attempts to capture, there was verbalizations of harm plans. There was obviously harm. I mean, I can't even, it's hard to believe that it was just here a week ago. And it doesn't, I'm sure that you're like, oh, but I'm not even in DC, right? Because we say all these things to try to protect ourselves, to let ourselves know we're safe. But it's a trauma response, so it is a horrible event is like sort of this very like gentle way to soften what is really happening. And I only start there um, because I do think that it is, first of all, we're doing this live in the context of, where we are at this point in time. I have really struggled to really say anything, publicly at all, about not just, oh, I got to get my 2 cents in and make sure this relates to body kindness, but just me as a human being, but like literally feeling like I don't have the words, because what is it that you're doing when you're trying to make sure your family's okay and protect your family? And, you know, um, anyway, um, yeah, and it's really not over. Like, there's plenty to still observe and unfold, and there might be a peaceful, hopefully, in some aspects, transfer of power. Like, I know there's a lot of protections they're putting in for Andy to work the inauguration, fingerprinting, all these security measures, COVID testing, fingerprinting, et cetera, that didn't used to have to occur, but obviously needs to. Anyway, it's just there's no guidebook for this. And the thing is that whenever we talk about use phrases like use food to soothe or emotional eating, like this is a big shame trigger for people. It's just a big shame trigger because everything that we're ever told, right, has been control yourself, right? Control yourself, control your cravings, control your food, measure it out, follow this diet, do the rules, and then you'll get some sort of reward. You need to earn
Mm-hmm.
your rewards and then you'll be good enough, right? Let alone the fact that all of that mess actually sets up for dysregulation of emotion and appetite. And that's just when we're not in a freaking coup and COVID and parenting and all that, right? So the other side of that coin is that, humans are emotional creatures. We are feeling creatures who think. And we are absolutely all emotional eaters in some way because we're all feeling some type of emotion. And you'll hear a person, oh, well, I tend to lose my appetite under stress and anxiety. And it's like, so there are definite tendencies, right? But depending on where you're at in your relationship to food, you might be restrictive normally. And then, like you said, you get in that overload and it's like, oh, give me all the food that I didn't let myself have before.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't so much it. So what I noticed, and that might be something that, our viewers encountering.
Mhm.
But for me, it was just noticing that I wasn't finding any emotion
Mhm.
in reaching for what I was reaching for. I
Mhm.
mean, it was even past, oh, this tastes good, or oh, this is making me feel better. Like it was just past that. And it was something
Mhm.
that hadn't really popped up in a really, really long time.
Mhm.
I'm super proud to say that, you know, it wasn't anything that I went to shame myself for, because again, in the past, I think that's something that I would have done.
Mhm.
I just kind of noticed what was happening, which for me is a good thing. You know, that's a good thing, because I know that
Right.
I've been practicing, you know, for years to kind of wrap my head around what it means to be kind to myself, and what it means to, you know, what health means to me. And
Mhm.
I think that's why I called right away. I was like, hey,
Yeah.
this is kind of happening, and I want
Yeah.
it. I want to share it. You know, I think that a lot of times on our podcast, or even some of our videos, it was like, oh, this is where I am, and I'm so happy that I got here, and it's, you know, and I'm doing
Mhm.
so much better, and
I'm at the
you
finish
know,
line.
yeah, I'm there, and it's great. And you know, and I'm not going to take that away from myself. I've been putting in some serious work over the years to get to a better place, but
Mhm.
for me, it was like, wow, hey, this is some work that I thought I had kind of already done. But
Mhm.
to your point, like, I guess it kind of surprised me that it just didn't go away, because I felt like for the longest time that I have had some control over it. And when I
Mhm.
say control, it was just part of who I was. It wasn't like, oh, me suppressing or working
Mhm.
so hard. It was, you know, putting in the work to really be kinder to myself, to define what health meant to me. And it was just naturally allowing me to be more in touch
Mhm.
with everything, my
Mhm.
movement, the way that I
Mhm.
was nourishing my body, relationships, and again, you know, the events of
Mhm.
all of last year, you
Mhm.
know. And I think, you know, going into this new year, I think, you know, really triggered something, and I wanted to
Mhm.
make sure that I was noticing it, and um, giving it its place, and
Mhm.
starting to kind of work through it again.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
what I wanted to share. And, you know, and when I talk about the events, sorry about that, and talk about the events, you know, I in no way am I leaving out, you know, BLM and the racial injustice, and the fact that, you know, we're placing immigrant children in cages, and for those that don't know, you know, um, racial equality, and especially issues around immigration, are very important and near to me. So, you know, these are things that I've been trying to find constructive ways to contribute to that dialogue, and to be an agent for change in those areas as well. So, um, yeah, it's there's a lot going on, and I know that I'm not the only one, and that's why I wanted to kind of share
Mhm.
this.
Yeah. So when you talk about, like, I thought I had a handle on it and things like that, right? Understand that under a normal, tolerable amounts of stress and anxiety, it is, right? You have your circuitry set up, you know, your through all the work that you have done, um, you know, in, you know, when you even when you talk about noticing, I notice this and that. When I know exactly what that means through body kindness, that means that you are in a non-judgmental, curious, and compassionate place. You're in inner caregiver mode. That is literally, talk about being at the end, sort of like the end of realizing a body kindness practice is that you let your inner caregiver lead, right? You try to let your inner caregiver lead most of the time, but you have many parts, critical parts, judgmental parts, sad, afraid, childlike parts. And, you know, those are all coming out as relevant now. You know, in the book, I only named a few of the parts that were more sort of related to emotions around um like Ms. Perfectionist or Mr. Perfectionist. um and like the tantrum toddler that was all about fairness, and or like the rebel. And so I only named like a few kind of common parts that people can identify with. But we all have, you know, a lot of different, you know, kind of versions of ourselves, right? That step in to do things for us, to keep us safe, alive, grounded. Um, and so when you talk about, I thought I had this under control, right? a lot of what it is, absolutely through the work that you did and this, letting your caregiver lead in the typical manageable day to day, right? You'd have stress responses and your brain went to, I can handle this. And you knew the solutions, you knew the answers, you'd figure it out. Sometimes that stress energized you, right? Engage that sort of cortisol rush. It energizes you. And then you might get really tired, but you sleep and get back up. And it's ebb and flow, right? But where we're at right now is it's, gosh, I feel like we're running the ultra marathon. It
It
is
does feel that
literally a
way.
mental
Yeah,
endurance, right?
sure.
And so what happens, right, is it's not a normal amount of stress and anxiety. It's not tolerable anymore. And it's like if the cup overflows, things are going to spill out. And that is what's happening, right? One of your parts that says, "Hey, I am going to protect you," right? We can't feel any more bad shit.
Mhm.
So we're going to go back to numb.
Mhm.
Remember?
Yeah,
And
oh,
so it
absolutely.
might not be the then and there, your worst place in your life traumas. And I would argue it's because you're so good with body kindness, because you are so stable in your typical self-care patterns. That's why it's not so extreme. That's why you're able to stay engaged with a non-judgmental caregiver and notice. But it is different than what you're used to, than what you feel comfortable with, than what you normally do. Not because I'm Bernie Salazar and I'm never going to eat emotionally again. I know that. I know you. Like, I know you. I know what you meant when you wanted to bring it up. But this part is coming in that's like, he can't handle this. And I'm so afraid that it's going to be too much. He needs to be there for his kids, his business, his wife's business, the whole thing, the family, the leader. And oh my God, what's happening in this country? That's it. I give up. And so even if it doesn't feel conscious, or it doesn't feel logical or rational, some other words you said earlier,
Mhm.
the reality of it is your system's functioning.
Mhm.
It's functioning, whether it's one less decision you have to make, whether it's a little bit of mouth pleasure, whether it's the thinking that I'll bring positive emotions, but then your caregiver's like, wait a minute, but we're really not enjoying this. And so it feels so kind of like things aren't connecting, because when that protective part kind of comes up, you said it'd been gone, right? That happens.
Yeah.
They go into the basement. And that protective emotional leader part, like, woo, where's the party? It came up to your conscious. I'm going to save you. I'm going to protect you. You
Sure.
get it, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's trying to do this thing, but your caregiver's like, I don't think this is working for me. And I don't know. And then time to call,
Yeah.
notice, let's wait for it. Oh, let's call Rebecca. Right. And you said, hey, no rush, when are we podcasting again? And I was like, yeah, well, let's figure that out. And then I
Yeah.
was like, what's up? And just, there was clearly this, hey, let's talk about it. And I wanted to talk quickly because truthfully, I want you to help make sense of this. I think, well, first of all, we're doing a lot of normalizing because of the shame trigger. I really want you to understand why you're doing what you're doing. It makes perfect sense. Your body's trying to help. But then there's this second piece when we could accept all that. There's this second piece of like, hey, I want to radically accept that my mind and body are working. They're trying to help me. This is survival mode. And also that helps with the shame trigger, right? I'm not saying I'm a bad person because this is happening. I'm, it doesn't feel like self-care. So something feels off on my radar and I think I need some help, right? I want to reach out. I don't want to be isolated anymore,
Sure. Yes. Yes.
right?
And that was super important. I think that one of the things that I shared when I called you, uh, you know what? I didn't even make that connection. I think subconsciously I knew that I needed to just kind of reach out to you and to my tribe, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
I definitely see our viewers and anybody who listens to the podcast is part of my team. I hope that you guys
Mm-hmm.
realize that we're part of yours. And I wanted to share this with everybody because speaking to what you were just sharing around shame, like right away I consciously chose not to do that to myself, but I could see how easy it would have been to do that. And I oftentimes say this, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, when I'm able to share what I'm going through in a very honest and open way, it with our listeners and with our viewers, it really helps me kind of work through it. So I almost, gosh, I feel kind of selfish in doing it, but I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that, I was really sharing this with
Mm-hmm.
anybody who was maybe out there and can relate or,
Well,
might
I
lend a
think
couple
what
words
you're
as well.
doing instead of selfish, how I would frame it is that you're modeling permission to not be alone. Because that's the thing. Shame will say, "Oh, you're so bad to even have this problem. You can't admit it." And it will put you on isolation island.
Sure.
So, and it's interesting because I think there's another part of you, the perfectionist part, right? Is, oh, taking people's time, or you're doing this for your sole benefit, right? Do you notice how that, oh, I almost feel bad asking for this. So that's what I mean about the many parts. It's like you notice how it's like, on the one hand, let's talk to Rebecca. Oh, let's do a podcast. Let's help others, right? We know that there's a part of you that day one has only been about helping people. That's why you chose the career that you chose. That's why you have, a business that is social justice oriented. It's why you do everything you do. You want to help people. And so the fact that you can help yourself and help someone else, even though by putting yourself first to help yourself, you're actually modeling this, hey, I can talk to somebody. I can say my needs matter. I can ask for it. Another monitor part steps in, is like, should you really be taking up people's time? Should you really make this about you,
Sure.
Bernie? So that's the conflict that you'll have. And just get used to seeing all those different things.
Sure. Yes. And I think that, even that type of thought process might have hindered me from reaching out. But yeah, I guess, when you put it that way, I'm definitely proud that I chose to, keep going through, because a lot of times, maybe in the past I would have recognized it and just kind of pushed it right out and kept doing it, or just,
Mhm.
not talked about it. But I'm definitely past that. And I think that that's something that I wanted to make
Mhm.
sure I was,
Mhm.
sharing as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
And
you might have just answered what I was gonna ask as a second question, which is, you'd said earlier, um, something about being proud of yourself, that you didn't let it go to shame, like that you were engaged with your caregiver and like you didn't let it go directly to shame. And I was wondering, what do you think would have happened if shame would have stepped in? You are so bad,
Mhm.
like, what do you think would have
Oh, I
happened?
mean, for me, like I'm a self isolator. Like I would have just, like, nobody would have known. I probably would have overcompensated, and let's pretend like
Mm,
everything's okay type thing.
mhm.
Um, and it's not. Like
Mhm.
there's too much going on in this world, let alone in our own lives,
Mhm.
during this crazy time that the entire
Mhm.
world is going through, for
Mhm.
me to isolate. Like and it's hard, right? Because we're physically being told, in order, for the good of ourselves and for our neighbors,
Mhm.
to isolate, like, physically. But I think
Mhm.
that, you know there are other ways, that we can reach out, whether it be
Mhm.
phone, or, one of these Zooms or YouTubes or whatever's out there. And
Mhm.
yeah, so what would have happened? I would have definitely just shut down and just isolated,
Mhm.
and you would have probably been like, "Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm great. Everything's fantastic. I'm so glad that I'm being
Mhm.
nice to myself."
Mhm. And you're
And
right.
that's
Fake it till you
yeah,
make. Oh, I've
yeah,
seen
and
fake it, Bernie. I have
yes,
seen fake
yeah,
it, Bernie.
yeah, sure. That's yeah, and I I definitely didn't want to do that. And again, I was surprised
Mhm.
to see that ha- habit just pop up. Like, I was super
Mhm.
surprised. I was like, "Whoa, there
Haven't
you
seen you in a
are!
while.
Yeah, hey, how you doing? What are we reaching for right now? You tell me, because I
Right.
am not driving this bus."
Yeah. Well, it's all good things to notice, because you're right. There's many people on that bus. But I think this is really pivotal, because it's important. I think it is important for everyone to realize that, when we look at the three pillars of body, kindness, love, connect, care, and, make choices from a place of love, connect to your body, connect to others, and care, fully commit to care for your well-being no matter what. And I mean, that's like a rest of your life job. That is
Mhm.
for better or worse, the highs and lows, all that. It's a full commitment. I am here for you. I'm going to care for you no matter what. And you have been able to stay connected. You have been able to notice something doesn't feel right. This doesn't really feel like, like typical me or what I've come to know as me. And what's so interesting about that is, again, for people who don't necessarily know, this is like you're on year 5 of 4 or 5 of working on body. Well, body kindness just turned 4, so you
5.
can't be okay. So we're
No,
starting
we're
year 5.
5. This is 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
because we
This is as old
podcasted for a
as
year
this
before.
is
Okay, okay,
yeah,
yeah.
this is as old as my daughter. Like she just turned
Oh,
like 5. Yeah.
okay, that's
So
right.
we're like 5 in a
So
month.
right. And so it is a lifetime thing. And it's, I think if somebody could be listening right now and just decide to jump off the diet roller coaster, right? I mean, imagine that day one, square one, and they're listening and they're hearing this stuff about emotional eating and all this validating and normalizing. And what I can imagine is this, but I gotta do something
Oh my
about
gosh, I totally
this.
left out the fact that it is the beginning of the year. And then now we are
Yeah.
bombarded with, you know, this is what you should look like. And here's how we're going to get you to that size. And,
Mm-hmm.
this is ideal. And oh gosh,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm happy about is I really don't even pay attention to that. I think that it was,
Mm-hmm.
oh gosh, I think something was on the TV. I don't know what it was, or else I would definitely share it. And I just remember walking by and I was just like out loud as I walked by and I saw the commercial, I was like, garbage.
Mm.
But it
Yes.
just made me laugh because I
Yeah.
felt like I had to say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole other thing that I get upset
Yeah.
about. Not that we're, hopping on for this, but
Yeah.
just how the media in general, whenever we're taking breaks from the craziness that is this world right now,
Mm-hmm.
they want to jump in and tell you this huge success story about this person that lost all this weight and
Mm-hmm.
now they're of value. Like that's what I
Mm-hmm.
see, and that
Yeah.
really, really hurts me because that's what we're putting on. It's like, oh, this is great, and hear this story, and it's
Mm-hmm.
inspirational. And then this person is like, oh my gosh, I've never felt this confident before. And
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing, like I want to make sure that I'm not invalidating how they feel about themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because that's great that somebody feels great about themselves, but you were a tremendously awesome person before you decided to change some numbers in
Right.
your
Yeah.
life. And I think the
You
fact that
don't need to center the weight
yeah,
loss.
yeah,
That's the
and
bottom
that's
line.
what kills me.
Mm-hmm.
You chose to move your body in a fun way. You've chosen to explore what it is that you're putting in your body and form different
Mm-hmm.
relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But
Or who knows? Some people could have chosen restriction,
oh
like
god,
there's a thing
yeah.
called weight cycling. I mean, the things that I've seen this year mostly are social media ads, mostly Noom and WW, right? Weight Watchers. And
Oh yeah.
I don't, yeah. And so with the Noom stuff, I mean, it's very clear in the new year that it was about calories and calorie counting and showing like good bad foods and difference in portion size. It's like you can have 10,000 grapes or 1 scoop of ice cream, and it's just like, but grapes are never going to taste like ice cream. Like it makes no sense.
And
And
who's gonna
it's
sit there and be like, I could just have all these grapes? Like after, like me personally, like after like 10, I'm like, okay, I'm
yeah.
done. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I love the cotton candy grape. Have you had cotton candy grapes
yeah,
before?
yeah, Bennett
Oh
loves it.
God.
Yes.
Oh my God. When they're in
But I still
season,
think it's hilarious that they're gonna equate 1 scoop of
right.
ice cream to the number of grapes you could have.
Well, and here's
Like,
the thing. When I bought cotton candy grapes this year, I went on Amazon and bought actual cotton candy floss, convinced that one day I'm going to put it in my blender and try to make homemade cotton candy. It's still sitting there in these giant bins, but it's like cotton candy grapes reminded me of how much I like cotton candy. So we did that. And then we also bought these little vials of cotton candy flavor to make our own ice cream. And we did that this summer. So all that is to say that Noom would not want you to do any of that. In fact, it puts you on about a 1,200 calorie a day diet. Sorry, content warning. Should have said that before. And I don't edit this, but the bottom line is, yeah, it's a lot of people will try Noom, like helping pros who are like anti-diet or just like, oh, I want to see what it's like, because I'm getting clients who are coming in off Noom. And very much so, it would recommend under fueling, over exercising, a lot of inadequate. And it doesn't matter. They got your money. They don't, and whoever you're connected to, what was their training and expertise? It's
gosh,
all
I
a crock,
no, of course. And the last thing that oh gosh, if you want to talk about my version of a bad time, it's like,
Yeah.
let's try to deal with everything that's going on in the world and be pissed off because our stomach is grumbling and our body aches. Like,
Right.
come on,
Right.
like what else could you do to yourself? It's like, that's
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous. But I'm really glad that we were able to hop on. I know it's
Mm-hmm.
something that, we don't, yeah, we just kind of put together, and I was
Mm-hmm.
glad I'm able to share. And, I
Yeah.
definitely plan on keeping you up to date with how this is
Mm-hmm.
going,
Mm-hmm.
especially our viewers and our listeners. Like,
Yeah. Well, I have one more question for you that has to do with so I'd mentioned earlier about, well, what if someone's at the very beginning and doesn't have 5 years of inner caregiver practice to kind of come in and because that I think is a big element, right?
sure.
You were able to pause, notice things, stay calm, think rationally. Oh, let me let Rebecca know. You didn't have thoughts of shame because you trust me. And like you said, you find a benefit out of talking to listeners. It was like all the stars aligned for you to be able to do that, which is great. It's a sign of your strength and your resilience. You're going to be awesome about it because
Thank
you're
you.
going
Yeah.
to eat emotionally. We all are. But here's the other interesting thing, so someone's early and they feel like desperately, I have to stop this. Just know that's where you are in your pain. And it takes time to be patient, to learn and grow. The practice of inner caregiving is a patience, love practice. And it can, often, I'll run a group reflection where they'll practice saying something like, you are worthy as you are right now. And then they'll write down how that phrase makes them feel. And then we'll all share in the group. And we can, in a group, kind of talk about it. First, it felt, like I didn't deserve that. And then, and everyone's listened to each other and they're like, oh, well, you deserve it. Right. And it's like, rah, there's all these spiral ups. And they're like, okay, so do this again a few more times on your own. And they're like, it was horrible. I wouldn't let myself think one positive thing. And so, even just that's the connect pillar, connect to other people,
Mhm.
right? Self care is not in isolation. Self care is, what is it that I need to do to care for myself because my body autonomy and I'm in charge, but also the family that you're in, the community that you're in with me.
Mhm.
We're in community right now, live on YouTube and later on the podcast. We're in community with our listeners. That connection, these people got me, I got them. I guarantee you we're going to get emails. Bernie made me cry. Thanks for telling your truth. The type of emails that we get of just like, it is relatable. You make me feel like a human, not judge. So all that stuff, you want to let that in. Here's the pivot question I have for you about it is, and this is kind of like I think I don't know if I want to use the word nuance or what, but I would say that there is also this permission to pivot, right? To say, you know what, I actually really do want to do something about the choices I'm making right now, right? So it's after careful thought. It's not weight centered, right? It's in conversation and reflection. And it's when you've noticed, okay, well, what is it that I don't like about my tagged emotional eating patterns, right? It's normal. It's, it's stress and anxiety dysregulation. So my body's just trying to survive and cope and soothe, and all that makes sense. And then and I'm not sure I want to just keep doing it until it goes away. I don't know if taking no action makes sense, but if I were to look at doing things, what would I do? So that people
So
don't
you're
jump
asking
to the
like what?
diet.
Okay, so for me, I mean, and I've already started this, and it's working for me right now. So there's two things.
Uh-huh.
I'll start with answering your question. Like, so Jen and Bennett, my wife and my daughter, and I made a banana nut bread the other day. And
Mm.
the reason why I share this, right, is because I definitely, was using food to just work through the emotions.
Mhm.
And I thought to myself, well, let's make this more personal. Like, let's
Mhm.
make this an opportunity to connect with some of my loved ones.
Mhm.
Am I still going to eat the banana nut bread? Yeah, if it was prepackaged, I'm going to eat it. If it's, but why not have it be homemade so that I'm
Mhm.
enjoying it more? I see what's going into it. I'm spending
Mhm.
time, quality time with my wife and my daughter while
Mhm.
my son is screaming because
Mhm.
he's a new walker, so
Oh
he's everywhere.
gosh.
But so what I've started to do was in no way shame myself or limit, or I'm accepting the fact that right now this is what's going on, but I
Mhm.
wanted to create more meaning around what it was that I was
Mhm.
choosing.
Mhm.
um, And a lot of times, actually, when I go through that process, I find personally that I'm satisfying something that was going to the mindless
Right.
food, or when I was mindlessly snacking. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of, it's that sense of community, that sense of connection, that,
Mm-hmm.
um, um, if even the physical uh, movement of creating and making, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times it's so funny because I cook quite a bit for the family, and I don't know if any of our viewers have experienced this, but a lot of times after I cook, I've tasted so much, or I find myself kind of already having been filled or fulfilled, in
Mm-hmm.
it. So that's one thing, and I just wanted to make sure that whatever I was going for had extra love in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is. I mean, I really think it's a love you can feel, not taste, right? And
Yeah,
first of
yeah.
all, like, yeah, that sort of screw it, the world's going to hell in a handbasket anyway.
Yeah.
Just give me the whatever, right? Like, you can realize, hey, you know what? I'm, no amount of whatever's I'm grabbing is really going to solve the problems of the world. And when I stop and think and reflect after, it's, am I tasting this? Am I enjoying it? And so is this the context in which I want to build a relationship around food? And so whether
Yeah.
it's, go ahead, what you're going to
No, I was
say.
going to say, yeah, that's kind of where that's when I stopped and I just noticed everything, because, I don't beat myself up if I'm
Mm-hmm.
tasting it and if it feels good in the moment. And, I mean, like if it's doing something, but I noticed that for me, it was just really numbing. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
just like super mindlessly,
Mm-hmm. Right.
going
Yeah.
towards something. So,
Right.
what I just shared is just helping me put more thought into it, knowing that
Right.
that mindlessness was serving its purpose, but I
Right.
want to at least put more
Right.
thought and care and love into
Right.
what it was that I was reaching for.
So when we talked about the overload and the overwhelm stuff, right? There is a skill in DBT, it's dialectical behavioral therapy. And it's a very good approach for when people struggle with binge eating, and it can be really helpful. And I mean, any issue that is involved with emotion dysregulation. And so it's called urge surfing. So it's literally about, here comes the tidal wave. Oh my God, I can't handle it. It's going to kill me. It's going to kill me. And I'm going to ride that wave. I talked in Body Kindness about get on your
Mhm.
surfboard and ride it. And that was from urge surfing, but I didn't go into explaining, oh, this is DBT and this is what it does. And this, I just gave the visual. But what I could see happening and the differences in the banana bread, right? Like you were feeling, like, oh my gosh, things are getting bad. That part stepped up and says, I know what I do to protect him. I'm going to numb. I'm going to bring numb emotions. We can't feel anything else bad. And what do? When we numb? We eat without even thinking. And whatever it is, package, not package, whatever it is, right? Something clicked in you that noticed that there wasn't thinking, it wasn't connected. There was things that you had learned you were no longer doing. And it was like, hey, this isn't right either, right? This doesn't feel right either. And then that next choice, I'd call it a spiral up, right? But it's like that next choice is like, okay, what if I engage in baking with my family, right? And
Mhm.
interesting, when I said, well, it's a love you can feel and not taste, right? Doesn't matter how big of a size you take, doesn't matter the ingredients, I mean, unless there's something special from that, or unless you take that bite, you're like, ooh, like my mom would tell me for her banana bread, use some brown sugar, makes the bread softer. So that culinary thing, and you notice, and ooh, I'm glad I did that. That's all fair. But the point is that in all those activities, the way that you feel different, even outside of eating, you're using your hands. That like tactile is anxiety and a stress resilience thing to do. You're using all your senses with touch. You're smelling the baking bread. You're hugging your kids, or you're spending good quality time, which we know fulfills your value as a dad. And being busy and having, like your youngest screaming, it's like, what you really want to say is shut up, but you can't, right? So there's, okay, let him do
Uh,
him, let me engage with Bennett, distract, da da
sure.
da da da. And so in the
Yeah.
end, when you get this bread, it's all the moments, love went into it all around, but also you had tons of time to surf the urge and ground. So when you had that piece, right, that first warm, amazing, can't wait to take a bite piece, you remember that feeling. I love getting excited about
Mhm.
food and eating,
Exactly.
and it's warm and da da
Yes.
da. And now you're back into the
Yes.
Bernie mode that
What's funny, because I mean,
you're
that's
with.
what I was getting at without explaining it as eloquently as you did. But this is, what I enjoy about this, is if you are, you know, in this right now, self isolating, that's something that you can do, whether you have a 5-year old or partner, or
Mm-hmm.
not. It's connecting with the ingredients, connecting with um, what it is you're choosing to enjoy, and that's something that really helped me out. But I want to speak really quickly to maybe somebody who's starting out. Um, if at all possible, just try your best to be kind and nice to yourself. Like, I know for me that was the biggest challenge, when I was starting
Mm-hmm.
off, is just thinking I was a horrible person because I had too much of this, or and I was hiding, uh, to consume this, and I was just so full of shame. Like, I know that it's easier said than done, because I've been there, but you are not a bad person
Mm-hmm.
for having a cookie, bread, a cake, ice cream, whatever it is. Like, uh, that does not make you a bad
Yeah.
person. So I just wanted to make sure I was
Yeah.
putting that out there.
Yeah. I mean, I would even say, and I could just talk from personal experience and, counseling. I mean, you know, um, you're not a bad person if you've been primarily soothing with food this
Yeah.
entire time. And even if you're bothered by it because there's a better way for you, or there's other things, like all of it, your worst fears about what you're doing right now, and that, we make up stories in our mind, about the risks and harm and all these things. And that's not try to belittle any concern you have about your well-being, about your health, all super valid. The point to make is that you were good the moment you came into this world. You were good every mistake, every flaw that you could find, physical, behavioral, emotional, whatever, right? We have inner monitors that do that. We have to believe in our inherent goodness. And, you know, they call them wake up calls for a reason, or a rock bottom moment for a reason, or however you want to say it. And there's a partial poem at the end of, I think it's the intro in Body Kindness, but it was Portia Nelson's autobiography in 5 short chapters, and it's a great poem. And basically it's about how somebody who walks down a street keeps falling in the crack, oh yeah, not my fault, and then it's like, oh wait a minute. And it's this idea of like, I think I'm doing something to get in this position, like, so it's like, why does this thing keep happening to me? To sort of this sort of ownership is like, I think maybe I'm doing something, maybe there's something I could do. And so in the poem, like, the person gets out immediately and then walks around the crack and then walks down another street, right? And so it's like, it's this idea that I think it's so beautiful, right? To see stages of change evolving, and like, but like, what is at the absolute root and core, that even if you're so mad at yourself for decisions you could have made, coulda, shoulda, woulda, for falling down that crack again, for whatever it is, right? Our inner judge will step in, right? It's keeping score. This is good. This is bad. This is right. This is wrong. How dare you? That is just a part of you that only knows how to make those judgments, right? But if you want the most basic introduction to body kindness, right? Hands on heart, soft eyes, and the softness towards yourself. And you just say, it's okay. It's okay to be here right now. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to need help and to want help and to seek help. And just by doing that, things are opening up already, right? And you will hear from other parts, oh, you can't handle it, you're going to fail again, you've tried, you know, it is a party inside. Just know that when you love, connect, care, right, to your inner caregiver that's fully committed no matter what, it will do what you're already doing beautifully, Bernie, right? Hey, I'm noticing this. I'm curious about it. I'm not sure this is good for me. I think I need to talk to Rebecca, right? You literally are sort of end game behavior, but end game behavior as a human, right? So it's very inspirational, for somebody who's not where you're at, to hear
Oh, thanks.
that those skills were pretty effortless on your part. You even talked about being patient and pausing, but you also knew when you needed to advocate for yourself and reach out and build and connect that to that community.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that, and I'm pretty proud of myself for doing that as well. So again, thank you, and
Mhm.
I appreciate the fact that you're in my corner, part of my team, and I'd like to thank everybody else out there who's watching. And I know we're all going through a lot, so just know
Mhm.
that we have your back as well, and we appreciate you very much. So
Yeah. And keep sharing what you're doing with your family, other little spiral ups and things. Put them on your Instagram or
sure,
wherever. Text me, let me know, and
yeah.
we'll share them next time we talk. And yeah, I just think the world of you.
Well, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. And everybody, take care of yourself out there.